Well, everybody, man, I got a lady on the channel. Let me tell you something. I like this sister. She is, this is her second time coming on Strong Inspirations, and she has an open door policy here. Anytime she want to share something is good. Let me plug her first. She is a well recognized, accomplished, thought of attorney in the great state of New York. She is a author of a book that's a bestseller. And she posts often about relationships when divorce and child support and things of that sort, to keep people informed, not just women, but men also, for us men to understand our rights in that scenario. And she, in her first video, she talks about, and I know this was personal to her, her great-great-grandfather, 2-3-time great, who everybody in her family and others suspect, and we're pretty much sure, 80-90%, was lynched. Very heartfelt story that she shared with us. Watch that video. Now, let me back up here. I'm Anthony Brogdon. Let me tell you who I am. I'm the host of the show, and I find people like her. She's on the top of the list, though. And I appreciate everybody. I'm not putting nobody, but you hear what I'm saying, my friends. And so hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. My numbers are up, and I appreciate it. All you, my subscribers, I love you. And those who want to subscribe, I love you already. I'll love you more when you hit the button, though. Hit the like button on this video. I know you're going to like it because it's going to blow your mind. It's coming from her heart. Watch. Hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up, you get notified. And I'm not going to, I just be honest with you, I don't want to put up no certain time because it hit my heart. Now is the time to share this. So I don't want to say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Now is the time. And that's when I do it. But it's on the channel permanently, so you can watch it anytime you so see fit. And then tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Let it flow. People, and this is crazy. You know how we Black folks do. We be talking about each other in such negative terms, not here on the channel. And one of the things we say is we don't preserve our own history. We let them tell it, not here at Strong Inspirations. Even though people of all races come on here, they tell it correctly on this channel. I make sure of that. We don't slant the news. We don't make it sound better than it was. Don't do that. Did you see the video? Did you see her video? Watch hers. And she, we got to go into it, but look for the one where the lady says she believes her great-grandfather was lynched. Watch that video. Look at the one when we on that same level note, the one that I got with the guy who says they had his grandfather at the tree and was about to lynch him and let him go. He's a Mason, and he did a Mason distress call. One of the guys under the robe was a Mason also, and said, oh man, I can't let him do it to my brother. And they let him go. And he ran through the woods naked to survive. Watch that video. Watch the one I did with the lady out of Kansas City at the museum. She talks about lynching and how it was a picnic for them. Watch that video. And on a lighter note, watch the one that I did with the guy whose grandfather was on the last slave ship to arrive in America. He tells that entire story. Watch that video. And it's so crazy about it. On the story was they got here in 1860. 5 years later, slavery, on all practical purposes, had ended. Them folks got together and developed their own community, which is a thriving section of Mobile, Alabama, which they have now titled Africatown. If you ever heard of Africatown, then watch the video and you know how it came to that name. Watch that. And, you know, I got others, like I got the son of the NBA first Black player on the channel. We jamming here, my friends. Now, a couple more things. You know, I got a movie out. I don't have the DVD to show you, but when you go to my website, Business in the Black, you can watch the movie. It's streaming on Amazon. And then I do have this for you. It's a book that I've written. I want to sell a million copies of these. I want everybody to get one, at least 1 million folks. And we're going to work to make sure that happens. And I donate copies to schools across America because somehow I did not know things like there were slaves who owned businesses. And I list at least 20 of them in my book. I ain't know that. Maybe I was asleep that day. Something happened. But when I found that out, I said, man, I got to tell others. And it's in my book and in my film. The film is streaming on Amazon, and you know the only place you can get the book at this point is on my website, businessintheblack.net. Now you hear me use this term strong a lot, and that is a definition of my guest today. She's a strong sister. She's under this mantra: strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. That's her. And this is my introduction to her. Watch, y'all gonna love this lady. Come on, sister, introduce yourself. Thank you again for coming on Strong Inspirations.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you for allowing me to be on the show. My name is Kathy Middleton Lewis. I'm an attorney in the New York City area, just as you said, specializing in family law and with a subspecialty in child support and paternity and custody litigation, which is a huge issue in all areas of our community, no matter who the people are, no matter what race they are, no matter what socioeconomic background they come from. And it's about to get huger as a result of this Roe v. Wade situation.
Oh, is that right?
Exactly, because what we're seeing in Texas already is they're making a determination to try to start having laws put into place that will require fathers to pay child support from the time that a woman is determined to be pregnant. Right now, in most states, child support is retroactive to either the time that a person files a petition for support or at the very most at the time that the child is born. But what legislators in Texas are saying is that they want child support to be in place at the time that it is announced that yes, she is positive, she's about to have a child. So dealing with that kind of a situation, the law has not caught up to the science in the sense that you're going to have a lot of fathers mistakenly determined to be the DNA father of the child and not actually have any kind of DNA relationship with the child at all. So we're in for a mess. But I know you wanted me to talk. I'm on here to talk about.
Yeah, I like it though. Well, how about this? Since you on that note, you got your book right there.
I do. You know what?
Hold on. Go get it. We got time. We plugging.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming right on back to you.
Yeah, no, we plugging.
Okay.
Yep.
I have 2 books.
Yep. Yeah, show the books.
On child support and paternity law.
Okay.
The first book I wrote is for women, which is Girl, Get That Child Support. How to track down a deadbeat, find his cash, and make him pay every dollar he owes you.
Okay.
And not a man-bashing book. This is for women who are struggling with deadbeat, irresponsible fathers, not dead broke fathers, because there's a difference.
Yeah.
And because we want the scales of justice to be balanced, we have the second book for men, which is Boy, Drop That Child Support, How to Keep Your Baby's Mama from Draining Your Pockets Dry.
Okay.
Because we know that not every woman is going to be responsible with the monies that they secure in child support. Most are, but there are some people who will take a person's money, the father's money, and will use it for everything under the sun except for child support. We also know that some fathers are wrongly accused of paternity. We know that 1/3 of most men, of all men in this country, who are designated to be the father of a child on a birth certificate is actually not DNA related to that child.
Wow. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's do that. I love it. And give us your website, how they can get your books.
The website is www.kathymiddleton.com.
Okay.
www.kathymiddleton.com. They can
Okay.
also follow me on Twitter @SupportLaw,
Okay.
where I give the child support tip of the day and answer questions that people may have about child support, paternity, and parenting issues.
Okay. Let me do this. Since we on this, and I like this just a tad. Not a tad, a lot, to tell you the truth, for even personal reasons. What was there any instances when back in Black History time with those white men raping those women? Was there any, what was that dynamic relative to support of the child? Was there any governmental rules going back to those days? Do you know?
You know, it's funny because this whole issue of a woman's right to choose and paternity all relates ultimately in the United States to property rights. So we know that, and the right for a man, in this case of white men, to determine the destiny of Black women's bodies, as well as white women's bodies for that matter. And so we know that during chattel slavery, Black women had no ownership of their wombs. Black women's wombs was the most profitable item that a slave master could own. And the reason for that was because that's how he got additional slaves. Whether it was through mating a female enslaved person with a male enslaved person and producing children in that way, or that slave master himself, or we call him enslaver actually,
Right.
going in and forcefully impregnating women, we know that that's how they gained their wealth. We also know that, according to a lot of history that has been done, is that slave owners were so aggressive about this that Thomas Jefferson bragged to George Washington that in Virginia, they were about to become the richest state because of the numbers of women, enslaved women, that were having children. And the demand was so heavy upon Black women that a Black woman was expected by the age of 20 to have birthed at least 6 children. And she was expected to have started having sexual relations by the time she was at least 11 or 12 years of age.
Wow. So
the authority that white men had over the Black male body was, it's unfathomable. And we see vestiges of that even to this day. We see it in the way that what most people don't understand is that we have a lot of incidents of forced sterilizations of Black women and other women of color. We found that women who were at the border, who were trying to come into the United States last year, a couple of years ago during the Trump administration, some of those women were sterilized in the state of Georgia. So, you know, we know that authority over a woman's womb, her not having power over her womb, has a long and sordid past in the United States of America.
Is there, when did there become laws, if you know this one, on the books about child support then? And does that ever affect white men having to pay for those babies at any point back in the day or any of that kind of thing?
It has absolutely no, the child support laws that we're looking at today is in no way, shape, or form related to what white men force Black women to endure by forcing sexual intercourse upon them. In fact, the very opposite is true. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. There was no obligation throughout the 20th century. If a white man at any point in time decided to impose himself sexually upon a Black woman and impregnated her, he had no legal obligation to support that child. The family of that woman and that woman herself, and in many cases it was girls, they were underage minors, were forced to endure the financial hardship, the emotional strain, all of those burdens rested upon that girl and her family. Wow. The child support laws that I'm dealing with are a result of the 1992 Welfare Reform Act.
92?
And yes, this is a recent phenomenon. The decision was made in the Clinton administration. I believe it was 1994, correction. 1994 Welfare Reform Act. Clinton administration made a decision that we were going to overhaul welfare, that welfare as it stood was burdensome upon the government. And so what they did was they enacted these laws that basically said, you know what, we're going to hunt down fathers and we're going to make sure that they support their children instead of the state being required to support them through public assistance.
I got you. I
And
got
the
you.
way these laws work is that the burden rests most heavily for the support of the children upon fathers who are financially limited. So, and of course, that's going to be disproportionately men of color, particularly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And
Sure.
everything about that system, from jailing a father if he fails to pay child support, hunting down his financial resources and taking so much money from him that he's not able to support himself. Everything about that system, in many respects, is a attempt to punish poor Black and brown men for entering into fatherhood.
I got another question on that one. I remember like watching that movie, and one who was it? Diana Ross, I think it was. Assistant, not Diana. It might have been Diana Ross and Billy D. Williams. There was a scene where he couldn't even be in the home.
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Diane Carroll and
Diane Carroll
Jones and Claudine.
Yeah.
Excellent point to make, because what happened was with public assistance, initially public assistance was aid to families with dependent children.
Right.
It was a outgrowth of the New Deal that was put into place under President Roosevelt, and it was designed to help either widowed or single mothers who were predominantly, overwhelmingly, 99.9% white women. They did not want this money going to women of color, and in particularly Black women. In fact, the states were so careful, particularly Southern states, to ensure that Black women didn't get this money, that the governor of Georgia, Talmadge, Governor Eugene Talmadge, used to sign the welfare checks himself in order to make sure that Black women did not get a dime of that money. Now, bits and pieces of the money did go to Black women in other states, but overwhelmingly, aid to families with dependent children was a white single mothers benefit program. As a result of the civil rights movement and the desire on the part of the Johnson administration to open up these benefits to Black people, to include us in all of these things that people were getting, including Social Security and military benefits that Black military men were not, Black servicemen were being denied. Well, welfare was part of that too. And so when Black women started getting those benefits in the 1960s, even though this is a program that started in 1935, all of a sudden, there was this backlash. And the attitude was, you know what? We're not responsible for women who are not being chased in terms of her sexual activities. And if she's sexually impure and she's having kids with these other people, we're going to police her and make sure that she really doesn't have any man in her life. So you've got these restrictive laws and rules, such as no man in the home. If she's got a man in the home, her benefits could be cut off. And that's what you saw with Claudine.
Yeah, right. I remember that. Is there, has there been any fair governmental laws that Black people have been able to take advantage of in regards to the institution of family that you know of?
I think that when child support works in a way that the Child Support Enforcement Act, I should say, when it works in a way that does not overly burden fathers of color, Black men, and men who have economic challenges, it can be a good program if you're dealing with someone who does not want to pay their child support obligation and they do have the financial resources to pay, but they're avoiding that obligation. In that instance, having the state step in and make that person responsible and imposing that requirement upon them can be very beneficial to a family. The problem is when you're dealing with people who have great economic challenges that are due to no fault of their own, but due to systemic racism. If the child support system does not recognize, and the current system that we have does not recognize systemic racism as a problem, then it becomes another burden upon an already burdened community of people. And that's the reason why I've written this book for men.
Okay. What about the other programs of WIC and I guess which is food stamps and other things like that. Have those programs been instituted to help Black people over the years?
They have been instituted more so to help people who were economic underclass. So WIC is something that came about also in the 60s as well, and along with some of the other programs that they have, like some childcare programs that help people who have low income. They have benefited Black people, certainly they have. But we have to remember, we only make up about 13% of the population. It's probably 14 or 15%, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But they won't, they want us to think that we're smaller. The vast majority of people who are benefiting from WIC and other programs with childcare subsidies are really white women, white single mothers who are living below the poverty line. So you've got a lot of women in rural America, in places like the Appalachians and Kentucky and places like that, and they get a great deal of that money. But of course, because of the nature of how racism works in our society, the face of government subsidies is always going to be a Black woman.
There's no question.
Welfare queen and
right.
Trying to beat the system.
Right.
But dollar for dollar, more white women get these subsidies than Black women or Latino women or any other women, Native American women. We don't get as much.
Okay, let's go back a little bit, even before that, if you can. Going back to right after slavery, were there any programs instituted to help the institution of Black family that you can speak of over the years or something like that? Reconstruction period. I know they did some banks and that kind of thing. Anything like that?
Yes, we did. There was a bank, the Freedmen's Bank.
Yeah, the Freedmen's Bank, right.
Yeah, and we all know about the tragic story of the Freedmen's Bank, which was set up right after slavery, and it was designed to sort of help the freed individuals learn the process of how you go about saving monies and putting them away and building for future, and the whole notion of thrift. It was to teach them how to manage their finances. That's what was stated. But if you look at how the Freedmen's Bank was handled financially, my understanding is that there were risky investments that were made. There was no respect that was given to the fact that these people were putting in, basically all the money that they had, because they had no wealth that was passed down to them, of course.
Sure.
And ultimately, when the Freedmen's Bank went under, none of the individuals who had deposits on hand ever got a dime back of their money.
Oh,
the government didn't try to reimburse them. Nobody did anything. The money was just gone. And so, we've had the Freedmen's Bureau as well. The Freedmen's Bureau did some things in terms of getting some charitable contributions down from the North, where you had rich investors who were willing to assist with individuals in the African community who was setting up communities in the South. In fact, at Spelman College, which is my daughter's alma mater, you had the Rockefellers. They contributed a lot of money, and you see Rockefeller, that name looms large on Spelman's campus.
Right.
They've helped in terms of doing things to get private individuals to make donations, but in terms of what the government should have done, no, certainly not. And that's why we have to fight for reparations even today.
Yeah. How about this? Was there what was the institution like of marriage? Was there a onslaught of Black people coming together getting married after slavery? Yeah, what would you think that might have been?
I've read that was one of the things that Black people quickly tried to do, was in addition to searching for biological relatives and married relatives, and trying to utilize the services that the Freedmen's Bureau provided to find separated relatives and to reunite with them. Many Black people, one of the first things they did was try to enter into marriage to begin to establish strong family bonds, because family is something that, for our community, long predates our arrival here. On the continent of Africa, family is a very strong institution. Extended family is a very strong institution. I think in some ways we are more family oriented than with the European model, because we have a tendency in our community to embrace people who may be spiritually related to us. That's why I call you brother.
Yes, right.
And, and there's a connection between us, and I'll
Right.
include his family. In the European construct, that doesn't necessarily exist. And that's also that sense of responsibility financially and morally and emotionally to extended relatives doesn't exist so strongly in the European construct.
Okay.
You know, there was a desire to reconnect and establish family bonds right after slavery. Absolutely, yes.
Let me ask you this. Well, is it, if you could give me an idea, the percentage of divorce, like during the early 1900s, did it eventually creep up to be as high as it, I know it did, as high as it is now? Because back then, people who got married stayed. I mean, we always talk about our grandparents, they stayed married.
Yes, indeed.
You know, that, give us some, you know,
well,
real reasons and stuff.
We know that at the dawn of the 20th century, at 1900 and 1901, that divorce was almost non-existent for Black people. We also know that single parent households were almost non-existent for the Black community. And that's also true for the nation at large, because it was, as a society, we were far more traditional in terms of family values and that kind of thing. And the notion of divorcing was much more looked upon as something that was a negative. As time passed and as society sort of changed and the value system changed, we saw you know, the numbers of divorced individuals or single parent households begin to creep up. And by the time you get to, say, the 1960s, the mid 1960s, when Daniel Patrick Moynihan does, you know, the infamous Moynihan report, and he states that 25% of the Black community is being born out of wedlock, or 25% of Black families are headed by a single mother. We know that that number is much larger than it was at the turn of the century, of the 20th century, that is.
Sure.
And, you know, you've got people who pontificate ad nauseum as to why that is. And you got a lot of conservatives will say, oh, it's because we introduced welfare into the Black community. But it's not the case. It's more of an economic issue that really drives why it is that we have greater degrees of divorce or just non-married parenting going on in the Black community. And I'll tell you, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead. Yeah, you jamming.
You know, a lot of people tended to think, oh no, it can't be economics. But what we're finding is that as we've moved into the early 2000s, that white women who are at the lower socioeconomic level, meaning that they don't have a college degree, they may have some college but did not complete a college degree, and are earning at less than a poverty level or somewhere near about there, that the numbers of white children that they have who are being born out of wedlock is skyrocketing, okay? In 2022, the fastest growing group of women who are having kids out of wedlock are white women who do not have a college degree. And the reason why is because you know, there's economic challenges, and a lot of times the men who they have available to marry do not have the economic resources to settle down and have a family. One of your previous guests, who wrote the book, the Emory
Love, Dr. Diane Stewart, is that who you're talking about?
Diane Stewart. She talked about in her book that you need to almost come up to a certain economic level in order to be able to afford to be married. So we know that if you've got a perpetually unemployed individual, say a guy, and he doesn't have the economic resources to help establish a home with a woman, he's more likely to not want to get married. That's not a phenomenon that's unique to Black men. That's a phenomenon that's unique to poor men, regardless of their race. And so a lot of these things that people, oh, the Black community just doesn't have the moral value, or these things are not true. What's more likely is that we are suffering most aggressively from the economic difficulties that keep us from being able to enter into a marriage setting and have kids in wedlock.
I love it. Is there a closing remark?
Yes, it's just, once again,
yes,
to caution people that with the death of Roe v. Wade, we're going to see some major changes in terms of our child support laws across the state, paternity laws across the state, and they're not going to be to the advantage of Black and brown communities.
But white people get hurt by that too. It's just not as in the same numbers.
Yeah, not in the same numbers. To be perfectly honest with you, anyone who's struggling financially is going to be in the crosshairs of the kinds of laws, the draconian laws that are about to come down the pipe. That's Black people, that's brown people, that's white people. Anybody who's struggling financially, look out for it, because it's going to be a problem.
Wow. And it's kind of crazy. And I guess this is my closing thought on this, is that when they put in those laws and they think they hurt each other, hurt us, I hurt some of them. And you just cited that, but it also, I think when they face it, like say for the example, when one of them politicians and their daughter gets pregnant, then they're going to find a way to justify what they do for her to get an abortion.
Exactly. And many people talk, you've seen this a lot on some of the interviews that are going on right now as a result of Friday's decision. This is an economic decision. The Roe v. Wade reversal is going to impact the poor. Wealthy women, even middle-class women who can afford to get a plane ride to a city like New York or a place like Los Angeles or Illinois or wherever it is that they need to go to have the abortions that they want, will exercise their rights to do so, and will continue with life as if Roe v. Wade was still in existence. This is going to be very burdensome for individuals who cannot amass the economic resources in order to get the reproductive freedoms that they need.
Yeah. Well, how shocked were you to know that this happened, the reversal of Roe v. Wade? I mean, we heard that letter, got out the secret thing, but could you have predicted that they've been working on this all them years and eventually they were going to get this to happen if they did what they did?
I'm going to tell you, Brother Anthony, I would not have predicted it on my own. I couldn't have imagined that in 2022, we would say that the economic, or I should say the biological freedom that women had to choose whether they wanted to go through with the pregnancy or not could actually be taken away from women. I couldn't have imagined that, because like I was born in 1970, so Roe v. Wade has been around basically all my life. Can you imagine?
Sure, me too. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, as I began to watch programs like Strong Inspiration and began to read books about our history and began to understand more about how the certain segments of our community keep other segments of our community, our society, oppressed, I began to realize, wait a minute, this is something that's probably going to come down the pike.
Wow.
And looking at the history of this thing, the conservative movement latched on to abortion as something that they should push along with Republican ideals and make that their permanent platform. That and guns and gays. Gays, guns, and abortion became their three-plank issue. Whether they talked about anything else going on in the economy or any social justice issues, they cared nothing about those things. Just those three issues about gays, guns, and abortion. And once you realize that that was the constant issues that they were concerned with, that they were going to go the chopping block. Roe v. Wade was on the chopping block.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, thank you so very much for sharing that. We I tell you, she good, man. She good. She gooder than good. And so thank you for sharing that. And so everybody hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. You see what I do. I let the people do the talking as best I can. Ask a couple questions. I find the people too. Somehow, this has become my ministry, to try to find these people somewhere out there and say, come on the channel and let everybody hear this story. And they telling personal stories too. I've had a couple people say, hey, I can't tell that. Other people might get mad or whatever. I don't know. And I don't sweat them over it. But when you want to tell it, this is where it happens, where we give it to you straight, no chaser, my friends. And so, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, hit the notifications bell, tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. And to you, my sister, I say this, and I mean this once again, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love what you're doing, educating people on all fronts. Thank you for coming on the channel, everybody. I'll say bye-bye, we out.